The air was cold and full of smoke as Dr. Simon Hale crawled through the wreckage of the crashed research ship. He could hear metal groaning and fire crackling around him. His arms were cut and bleeding, and every breath he took burned his chest. But he was alive, and that was more than he could say for the rest of his team. There had been 6 of them when they landed on the moon called Vexernine, a dark and dead place with strange rocks and deep canyons. They came to study the signs of alien life. They found more than signs. The first scream came just 2 hours after landing. The second one followed fast. By the end of the first day, only Simon remained. The others were gone, taken, torn apart. They never saw it coming. Only shadows, only sounds in the dark, and blood on the ground. Simon did not know what the creature looked like, only that it was fast and silent and deadly. The soldiers called it a void stalker, an apex predator from a dead world, a creature that hunted for sport and never left survivors. Now it was hunting him. He hid inside the broken ship. The door was half open. Sparks danced in the air like fireflies. He pressed himself into the corner, heart pounding, hands shaking. Outside he heard the soft thud of heavy feet, a low clicking sound like metal tapping on stone. Then silence. He held his breath. The silence grew louder, like the whole world had stopped. Even the fire seemed to go quiet. The creature was near. He could feel it, watching, waiting. Simon knew this was the end. He had no weapons, no strength left to run, only fear, only the sound of his own heartbeat. The door creaked, slowly, very slowly. Then it opened wider. A shape moved into view, tall and dark. Its body seemed to shift like smoke. Its skin looked like armor, black and smooth with strange patterns. Eyes like burning coals locked onto Simon. It stepped closer and closer. Simon closed his eyes. He whispered goodbye to his family, to Earth, to everything he had ever known. But the strike never came. He opened his eyes again. The creature stood still. It tilted its head like it was studying him. It growled low but did not move. Simon stayed frozen, not daring to speak or breathe. Then something strange happened. The creature lowered its body. It dropped to one knee, then to both. Then it lay down flat, like a dog waiting for its master. Simon blinked. This had to be a trick, some game before the kill. But nothing happened. The creature made a soft purring sound, then rested its head on the floor. Simon slowly stood up. His legs were weak. He took one shaky step toward the door. The creature lifted its head, but did not attack. Simon stepped outside. The creature followed. It moved behind him, not chasing, not hunting, just walking, like a pet following its owner. Simon walked faster. It followed faster. He stopped. It stopped. He turned to face it. It looked up at him. No growl, no anger, just silence. He held out his hand without thinking. The creature stepped closer, lowered its head, and pressed its nose into his palm. Its skin was warm. Its breath was slow. Its eyes looked almost calm. Simon felt fear, but also wonder. Why was it doing this? Why was he still alive? He looked around at the burning ship, at the empty sky above, then at the creature beside him. It had chosen him. But why? The stars shone down on the moon, cold and distant, and somewhere deep inside the black eyes of the void stalker, Simon saw something he did not expect. Loneliness. The creature turned and made a soft clicking noise. Then it began to walk. Simon followed. He did not know where they were going, or why he was still breathing, but something told him. This was only the beginning. Simon walked slowly across the cold black ground of Vexernine. The creature walked beside him without making a sound. Its steps were heavy, but soft, like it was careful not to scare him. The sky above them was dark blue with no stars. Just the quiet hum of the wind and the whisper of dust moving around their feet. His mind was spinning. Every part of him screamed to run, but something deep inside told him not to. He had seen it kill. He had seen it rip through steel like paper. But now it followed him like a loyal pet, like a guardian. It did not growl. It did not show teeth. It just watched him with those glowing eyes. They walked for what felt like hours until the ground changed. Rocks turned to glass. The air became warmer. They reached the edge of the human outpost. Simon stopped and looked at the walls ahead. Tall gray metal with blinking lights and defense guns. He could already hear the warning sirens rising. He turned to the creature. It tilted its head again, then lowered itself flat to the ground like before. Simon raised both hands and walked toward the gate. Security bots rolled out with weapons aimed at his chest. Then they saw what followed behind him. Alarm screamed. Guards shouted. Someone yelled to shoot. Simon screamed back, "No, no, wait, do not fire." The Void Stalker rose, its shoulders high, its eyes burning. A low sound rumbled from its chest, but it did not move. Not yet. The commander came forward. She was tall and strong with sharp eyes that never blinked. She looked at Simon, then at the creature, then back at Simon. "What is that thing doing with you?" she asked. "Why is it not killing you?" Simon shook his head. "I do not know. It just chose me." They stared at him like he was mad, but no one pulled the trigger. Not yet. The commander ordered the guns lowered, but said if it moved wrong it would be turned into ash. Simon nodded. He turned to the creature. He whispered, "It is okay. They will not hurt you if you stay calm." The creature blinked, then sat down. The base gates opened and Simon stepped inside. The creature followed, and no one dared stop it. Inside the base was chaos. People ran. Some screamed. Others pointed cameras. One brave tech tried to scan the creature from behind a glass wall. The creature turned and stared at him. The tech dropped his scanner and ran. They locked Simon in a white room with cameras and lights. The creature sat outside the glass watching him. It refused to leave. A doctor entered the room and asked Simon 100 questions. When did you make contact? Did it touch you? Did it enter your mind? Did it plant an egg inside you? Simon said no to everything. I do not know why it follows me. It had every reason to kill me, but it did not. It acts like it trusts me. The doctor looked worried. She left the room without another word. Later that night, Simon sat on the small bed, staring at the creature through the glass. It was still there, watching, not moving. He spoke softly. "Why me? What do you want? Why did you stop?" No answer, only silence. Then, something shifted. Simon felt a strange warmth in his head. Not pain, not pressure, just warmth like a gentle wave touching his mind. He gasped and gripped the wall. A picture flashed in his head, then another, then another. He saw a dark room filled with smoke, a tall man screaming, bright lights, chains, pain, loud voices, and the creature, alone and afraid, caged. Then he saw a desert, a hunt, a team of soldiers falling one by one, the creature moving fast. But something changed. A moment, a choice. It looked into Simon's eyes and did not kill. The pictures faded. Simon fell to the bed, breathing hard. He looked up. The creature was still watching, its head low, its eyes dim. Simon whispered, "You were hurt. You were used. And now, you want peace." The next day the commander returned. She had orders from above. Simon must be taken to Earth. The creature must be taken apart. Simon shouted no. "You cannot do that. It saved me. It is not a monster." She said, "It is not your pet. It is a weapon, a dangerous thing that should not exist." They sent a squad to separate them. The soldiers moved fast, stun rods ready. They fired shock blasts through the glass. The creature roared. It leapt between Simon and the blasts. Its back burned. Its body shook, but it did not move from Simon's side. The room filled with smoke. People screamed. The creature bared its teeth. One guard raised his rifle. The creature lunged, knocked the rifle away, held the man down, but did not kill. Simon stepped forward. He placed a hand on the creature's side. It froze, then let the man go. The room went still. Simon looked around. They all feared it, but they did not understand it. He said it again. "It chose me, not as prey, but as something else." The commander stared hard at Simon, then turned to the others. "Stand down," she said. For now. That night Simon sat by a window in the outpost. The creature sat beside him. They looked out at the stars. Simon spoke in a soft voice. I was just a scientist. I came here to study rocks and soil, not to find a friend. The creature tilted its head. Simon asked, Can you understand me? Can you speak? The creature reached out with one claw. It gently touched the glass between them, then pulled back. Simon touched the same spot. Another wave of warmth filled his head. A word formed, not spoken but felt. Safe. Simon smiled. Just a little. He whispered, You are safe too. Somewhere deep in space. The signal went out. A message from the outpost. Short and cold. Subject bonded. Human must be removed. Asset must be recovered. They were not alone. Others were watching. Others were coming. And they would not be kind. The morning on Vexor 9 was quiet, but it was not peace. The air inside the human outpost was heavy. Everyone walked slower. Everyone watched their backs. Everyone kept their eyes on the creature. Simon sat in a small room with a cup of cold tea in his hands. He had not slept. His mind replayed everything. The crash, the screams, the way the creature looked at him, the way it protected him. He felt something now. Something deep. Not fear. Not danger. Something else. A connection. Across the glass wall the creature sat still like a statue. It had not moved all night. Its eyes were open, always watching. Simon stood and walked to the door. The guards did not want to let him out, but the commander allowed it. She said, We will give you 5 minutes, but one wrong move, and we put it down. Simon stepped into the chamber. The door closed behind him with a loud hiss. The creature turned its head, but did not rise. It waited. Simon walked slowly, his hands open, his eyes calm. He stopped just one step away. He whispered, You are not just muscle and claws. You are not a beast. You are something more. The creature leaned forward. Then it placed one clawed hand on its chest. Simon saw another wave. Not with eyes, but with his mind. He saw a ship in flames. Metal cages. Cold white lights. Screaming voices. He saw the creature chained. Its body cut. Its blood taken. It was trained to hunt. To kill. To obey commands. But one day it broke free. It tore through the labs. It escaped into space. And they sent people after it. Always chasing. Always trying to trap it again. Then he saw a figure. A human. Older. Wiser. This one had touched the creature too. But he had vanished long ago. Left behind nothing but a whisper. Simon blinked. The memory was gone. But the feeling stayed. He looked at the creature. His voice low. They tried to turn you into a weapon. But you were meant for more. The creature touched its chest again. Then slowly reached out. Simon did not move. He let the claw rest gently on his arm. It was warm. Not cold like before. The bond grew stronger. Later the doctors scanned Simon. His brain showed strange patterns. New lights. New waves. They said something was linking his mind with the creature. Something rare. Something dangerous. The commander stood by the window. She looked at Simon and asked, What is this? What have you done? Simon said, I did nothing. It chose me. And I chose not to run. She said, This bond is not natural. You are not trained. You are not a soldier. Simon said, No, I am not. But maybe that is why it worked. The bond was not about power. It was about trust. The scientists began to study the creature. It let them. As long as Simon was near. It would not eat unless Simon brought food. It would not sleep unless Simon was safe. It would not allow anyone to touch it except Simon. Soon people began to whisper. They called it the shadow pet, the beast's friend. Some even called Simon the tamer. But he hated those names. He did not control the creature. He did not own it. They were connected, like two rivers flowing into one. One night Simon sat with the creature near the edge of the outpost. They watched the stars together. He asked, Do you have a name? Is there something I should call you? The creature blinked slowly, then looked up at the sky. Another wave touched Simon's mind. He saw fire, then silence. Then one word formed like a soft breath in the wind. Cairo. Simon smiled. Cairo. Yes, that feels right, he whispered. Thank you. Cairo. The creature made a low sound, almost like a purr. Suddenly alarms rang through the base. Red lights flashed. The commander's voice came over the intercom. Unmarked ship detected. Warning. Prepare for contact. Simon stood. Cairo stood beside him. The ship was not human. It was black, long, silent. It did not answer hails. It did not send signals. Then it fired a probe into the outpost. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. We are watching. The probe contained a file. Inside was a face. A human man, old with silver hair and sharp eyes. Simon looked at the picture and froze. It was the same man from Cairo's memory, the first bonded. The file said only this: he lives. We want him back. The commander read the message and said, "This changes everything." Simon said, "Who is he? Where is he?" The commander said, "He was one of us. Years ago, he bonded with another creature, then vanished during a Black Ops mission. We thought he was dead." Simon looked at Cairo. He said, "This is not just about me. They have done this before." The commander nodded. "And maybe they failed before too." That night Simon spoke to Cairo again. He said, "We have to find him. The first bonded. He might know the truth. He might help us." Cairo looked at him, then reached out with one claw. Another wave came. A map. A star system. A code. Simon understood. They had to leave. But the commander said no. "You are not going anywhere. That thing is too dangerous. And so are you now." Simon said, "If you stop us, you may never learn the truth." She said, "You are not in charge here." Simon looked at Cairo, and Cairo looked at the wall. Then Cairo roared. Light shattered. Walls shook. The power grid fell. Simon and Cairo ran through the dark. Soldiers chased them, but Cairo moved fast. Too fast. They reached the launch pad. A small scout ship waited. Simon jumped in. Cairo followed. The engines roared to life. As they lifted off, Simon looked down at the base. Smoke rose. Sirens screamed. He whispered, "I am sorry, but we have to go." Cairo made a sound like a promise. Ahead was the unknown. A mission. A mystery. And maybe a man who once knew what it meant to be chosen by a monster. The stars opened wide, and they flew into the night. The scout ship moved fast through the stars. Simon sat at the controls, with his hands shaking slightly. He had never flown alone before. The computer did most of the work, but his heart still beat hard in his chest. Behind him, Cairo crouched near the engine wall, its body low and still, but its eyes glowing like fire. They had escaped, but Simon knew they were not safe. The stolen ship had no weapons, no shields, barely enough fuel to reach the edge of the star system. Simon looked at the small blinking map. A red dot marked their course, and far away, another signal flashed. The coordinates from Cairo's mind. That was where they were going. A system marked as dead on human charts. No colonies, no life, no reason to go there. But Cairo had shown it, and Simon trusted him, now more than anyone. The ship floated in silence. No music, no words, just the hum of the reactor and the soft breathing of the creature behind him. Simon turned and looked at Cairo. He said, "They will come for us. You know that." Cairo tilted his head, then placed one claw gently on the wall. The lights flickered, and Simon felt a wave touch his mind again. A flash of metal. Men in black armor. Guns. Shadows. The scent of fear. And the sound of footsteps chasing. Simon whispered, "You have been hunted before." Cairo did not move, but the answer was clear. They always came. Back at the outpost, the commander stood before the shattered wall. Smoke still drifted through the air. Screens flickered. Alarm silent now. She held the probe message in her hand, reading it again and again. She said, "He escaped. With the creature. He has no training. No plan. He is flying into the dark alone." A voice behind her said, "He is not alone." She turned to see the science officer, a young man with sharp eyes and trembling hands. He held a data pad. He said, "We scanned his brain before he left. There's more than a link. There's something else. Something growing." The commander narrowed her eyes. "Growing. Yes. The bond is changing him. Not just mentally. Physically. His brain patterns. His nerves. They are not fully human anymore." She stared at the screen. Then at the stars outside the window. She said, "Send the Black Wing after him." The science officer gasped. "You want to call them in? That unit is not made for capture." She said, "I do not want him captured. I want the creature dead, and the human erased, far away in the cold of space." Simon watched the stars slide past, each one like a frozen flame. He thought of Earth, of green trees, of air that did not taste like metal. He had left it all behind, because of a creature that should have killed him, but did not. Cairo moved to the front of the ship. It sat beside him. Close. Too close for most people. But Simon was not most people anymore. He asked, "What do they want from you? Why do they chase you?" Cairo looked down, then raised one claw and pressed it to Simon's chest. A new wave filled his mind. He saw images again. Not just memories, but feelings. Pain, fear, loyalty. He saw a lab, a machine, a human voice, saying, "Make them bond, make them obey." He saw Cairo in a cage. He saw other creatures. Smaller, weaker. They did not survive. Simon gasped. They tried to force the bond. Cairo nodded once. Simon asked, "But why did you choose me?" The answer came like a whisper. "Because you did not want power." Simon leaned back. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then the alarm beeped. A ship was following. He looked at the screen. Small, fast, silent, Black Wing. He had heard the name before. A team that worked for no flag, no nation, no law, only shadow. Cairo stood up. Its claws scraped the metal floor. Its back arched, its body low. Simon turned off all signals. He killed the lights. The scout ship went dark, but the Black Wing ship kept coming. Simon said, "They found us anyway." Cairo growled. A sound like thunder underwater. Simon pulled the ship down, toward a dead moon. No life, no light, only rocks and ice. The ship hit the surface hard, skidded across the ground, then stopped. Smoke rose from the sides. The reactor hissed. Simon grabbed a pack and opened the hatch. They ran into the cold. The air was thin. His lungs burned, but he kept going. Cairo moved beside him, silent as shadow. Above them, the enemy ship landed. Black figures stepped out. 6 in total. No faces, no names, just black armor and long rifles. They moved fast. Simon and Cairo hid in the rocks. He whispered, "They will not stop." Cairo looked at him, then at the sky. Another wave filled Simon's mind. A plan, a risk. Cairo would draw them away. Simon would find a cave marked in the memory. Inside would be answers. The next piece. Simon said, "You will not come with me." Cairo looked down, then nodded once. Simon did not like it, but he knew it had to be this way. Cairo stood tall, let out a roar, then ran across the rocks. The Black Wing turned, guns ready. Simon used the moment to run the other way. He found the cave. Dark, cold, but dry. Inside was a light, a device. Old, alien. He touched it. It lit up. A voice spoke. Soft, broken. "Welcome, bonded one." Simon froze. The voice said, "You are not the first, but you may be the last." He asked, "Where are you? Who are you?" The device flickered, then showed a face. The same face from the probe. The silver-haired man. The first bonded. The man said, "If you found this, you are already in danger. They will erase you, because they fear the bond." Simon whispered, "What is the bond really?" The man smiled. "Not just trust, not just control. It is evolution. You and the creature are becoming one." Simon stepped back, his chest tight. The man said, "You must choose soon. Become something new." or be destroyed. Outside, the sky burned. Cairo roared again, and the Blackwing moved to kill. The cave was cold and dark, but Simon barely noticed as he stood before the glowing image of the silver-haired man. The voice from the old alien device was soft but clear as it echoed off the stone walls. I am called Elias Vorn. You have found this because you are like me. You are bonded. Simon took a step forward. His heart beat faster as the light from the device flickered and wrapped the cave in a pale blue glow. Elias continued, Many years ago I was chosen by one of them. Not the one you know. Another. They called it Project Seraph. They said it was science. They said it was safe. But they lied. Simon listened as images began to form in the air. Holograms. Memories. He saw Elias younger standing beside a massive black creature. Similar to Cairo, but taller and leaner. Its eyes burned white. Its body covered in strange markings. Simon could feel its power, even through the projection. Elias spoke again. They thought they could make it follow orders, but it did not want war. It wanted understanding. It chose me, and I let it in. The image changed. Elias was in chains. Men in black armor surrounded him. Doctors. Agents. They were afraid of what he was becoming. Elias said, The bond does not stop with the mind. It goes deeper. It reaches your cells, your blood, your bones. Simon looked at his own hands. They were still human, still familiar, but he remembered the tests. He remembered what the doctor had said. His body was changing. The projection faded and returned to Elias's face. He looked tired, older, but calm. If you are hearing this, then you are in danger. They will try to destroy you, not because you are weak, but because you are different. Simon asked, Where are you now? Are you still alive? The device paused. Then a map appeared. It showed a planet at the edge of a dying star. No name, no beacon, just blackness. Elias said, That is where I went. That is where I left the bond. Simon stepped back. Left it. You ended the bond. The voice grew quiet. Yes, I had to. It was too much. It wanted to merge, to become one. I was afraid. Simon looked outside the cave, where the sky flashed red. He knew Cairo was still fighting, still protecting him. Even now, the voice of Elias said, You must choose. Let the bond grow and become something new, or break it and lose it forever. Then the light faded. The cave grew dim, and the voice was gone. Simon sat in silence. The words ran through his mind like cold water. The bond is not a link. It is a path. He looked down at his arm. For a second he thought he saw something under the skin, like veins of light, but then it was gone. Outside the wind howled. Simon grabbed the device and ran from the cave. He climbed the rocks. The night sky burned above. He could see fire from weapons, smoke rising from broken ships. He ran faster, heart pounding. Then he saw him. Cairo was down on one knee, his body covered in burns and cuts. Black-winged soldiers circled him, guns ready. Simon screamed, Stop! The soldiers turned. They hesitated. Cairo looked up, one eye swollen shut. But he saw Simon, and he stood, even wounded. He stood. Simon raised both hands. He said, I have what you are looking for. I know the truth. I know about Elias. One soldier stepped forward, his voice cold. You will come with us now. Simon said, No, I am not going with anyone. He turned to Cairo. He said, You still trust me. Cairo growled low, then nodded once. Simon reached out his hand. Cairo touched it. A blast of energy surged around them. Light and wind. The soldiers fell back. Simon felt his skin burn, his mind spin. He saw stars and fire and memory. He saw Cairo's birth, his pain, his escape. He saw every death, every hunt, and every moment of silence. He saw Cairo watching him, choosing him, not for power, but for peace. Simon gasped as the energy settled. He was still there, still himself, but something was different. The black-winged soldiers opened fire. Simon raised his hand, and the air shimmered. The bullets stopped in midair, then dropped. Simon looked down. His veins were glowing. His heartbeat was calm. Cairo stood beside him, breathing hard, but alive. The soldiers ran, afraid, confused, broken. Simon fell to his knees. He said, "What am I becoming?" Cairo lowered his head and pressed it to Simon's shoulder. Another wave came, not in words, but in feeling. "You are not alone." Later that night they found a cave to rest. Simon sat with the device and replayed Elias's last words. He knew now what the first bonded had feared. He had seen it. He had felt it. But Simon was not afraid anymore. He whispered, "We're going to find you, Elias. We're going to end this." Cairo closed his eyes. Simon leaned back against the wall, and the stars outside blinked like eyes in the dark. Far away, on a hidden station deep in a gas cloud, a group of men watched the scene play out on a screen. The lead figure leaned forward. "So, the bond has awakened." He turned to the others. "Contact the council. Tell them Project Seraph is alive again. This time, we do not destroy the bonded. This time, we take them." Simon woke to the sound of wind scraping across stone. The cave was still and cold, but Cairo was gone. He sat up quickly, his heart already racing. The last thing he remembered was falling asleep beside the creature. Now he was alone. He called out, "Cairo! Cairo!" No answer. He ran outside. The sky was gray and silent. The dead moon stretched far in all directions, empty and wide like a forgotten desert. Then he heard it, a sound like bones cracking under pressure. Then a scream. Simon followed the sound, fast, breathing hard, his boots sliding on loose rock. He climbed over a ridge and stopped. Cairo was standing in the middle of the valley. 3 black-winged soldiers lay broken around him, their weapons shattered, their bodies still. Cairo's claws were covered in dark red. Simon stepped forward. Slow, careful. Cairo turned to look at him, eyes glowing, chest rising and falling like a machine, his body tense, his mouth open just a little, showing sharp teeth. Simon whispered, "You killed them." Cairo said nothing, but the truth was clear. Simon stepped closer, his voice quiet. "You were protecting yourself. Or were you hunting them?" Cairo growled low, not loud, not angry, but strange, almost unsure. Simon stared at the bodies. He looked at the way the wounds were shaped. Precise, efficient, not wild, not random. He turned to Cairo, his voice shaking. "This was not defense. You tracked them." Cairo did not move. Simon took another step. He said, "Did you enjoy it?" Cairo blinked once. Then a wave hit Simon's mind. A memory. Short, sharp. Cairo in a cage. Shock rods. Laughter from men in black. Pain, pain, pain. Then, the bond. Then, Simon. Then, peace. The memory faded. Simon stood still. Now he understood. It was not just loyalty. It was instinct. Deep inside, the Void Stalker was still a predator. Still a weapon. Even with a bond. Even with trust. It had limits. Simon looked down at his hands. He remembered the way he had stopped the bullets. The way the light had moved under his skin. It was still there. That power. That connection. But what was he becoming? And what was Cairo really? He whispered, "You trust me. But what happens when you lose control again? What happens when the instinct is stronger than the bond?" Cairo stepped closer, then sat down, eyes low, breath slow. He placed one claw on his own chest. Another wave came. This one was emotion. Not words. Not images. Only a feeling. Guilt. Simon closed his eyes. He said, "I am not afraid of you. But I am afraid of what they are turning us into." They buried the bodies. No fire. No markers. Just silence. Later they found a crashed beacon from the Blackwing ship. Inside was a cracked data core. Simon worked for hours until it powered up. A single message blinked on the screen. Capture failed. Bond unstable. Initiate next phase. Simon frowned. He turned to Cairo. What next phase? Before Cairo could answer, the ground shook beneath their feet. A deep rumble. then a roar in the sky. Simon ran outside and looked up. A ship was falling, burning, spinning. It hit the ground far to the north. A bright flash, then smoke. Simon looked at Cairo. Another signal. They walked through the night. No rest, no words, only stars above and dust below. By morning they found the wreck. The ship was not Blackwing. It was old, civilian. Inside they found one survivor, a girl, no older than 16, wearing a cracked helmet and a coat far too big for her small frame. Simon pulled her out. She was weak, her leg broken, but her eyes sharp with fear when she saw Cairo. She screamed, tried to crawl away. Simon said, "No, he is not going to hurt you. You are safe." She stared at him, then at Cairo, then back at Simon. She asked, "You control it?" Simon shook his head. "No, he is not mine. We are bonded." Her name was Lyra. She was a scavenger. She said she had picked up a strange signal before her ship was attacked. She followed it, hoping for salvage. Instead, she found them. Simon asked, "What signal?" Lyra opened a small device. The same coordinates as before. The place where Elias had gone. Simon stared at the map. This is not an accident. Someone wanted them to meet. Later that night Lyra sat by the fire. She watched Cairo, still afraid, but curious. She asked Simon, "Can it feel like you and me?" Simon looked at Cairo. "Yes," Lyra said. "Then why did it kill those men?" Simon was silent for a long time. He said, "Because sometimes instinct is louder than reason." Cairo looked away. Simon added, "But he regrets it." Lyra frowned, then whispered, "So do I." Simon looked at her. She said, "I was born in a war camp. My parents died in a prison cell. I used to dream about having something that would protect me. But now, I wonder, what happens when that thing decides you are the danger?" No one answered. Later that night Simon dreamed. He saw Elias, standing alone in a storm of fire, calling out, warning him. The bond grows. It learns. It changes. You will not stay human forever. Simon woke with sweat on his face. He turned to Cairo, sleeping, peaceful. For now, he looked at Lyra, curled up, breathing soft. He whispered, "What are we becoming?" No one could answer that, not even the stars. The sky above the dead moon turned orange as a storm rolled in from the east. Dust swirled through the thin air and lightning danced along the horizon. Simon stood at the edge of a cliff, staring out at the old coordinates Elias had left. Cairo stood beside him, silent, still, a shadow against the rising wind. Lyra stayed behind at the crash site, her broken leg still healing. She said she would wait, but she said it with a look that Simon could not forget. She did not trust Cairo, and Simon was no longer sure he trusted himself. The last few days had changed everything. The bond had grown stronger. Simon felt it in his bones, in his thoughts, in his dreams. Sometimes he would think something and Cairo would move before he spoke. Sometimes he felt hunger or fear that was not his own. Sometimes he looked in the mirror and saw light under his skin where veins should be. He reached the top of the ridge. The storm shook the rocks under his boots. Cairo crouched low and moved forward. Simon followed. They came to a cave. Not natural, made by machines long buried under ash. The entrance was marked with a symbol. 3 circles, one inside the other, burned into the stone. Simon touched the wall and it opened. Inside was darkness, then light. The walls were lined with glass. Inside the glass were tanks. Inside the tanks were things. Bodies. Some human, some not, some in between. Simon stepped back, his chest tight, his breath shallow. He turned to Cairo, his voice rough. "What is this place?" Cairo placed one claw on the floor. A wave entered Simon's mind. Not memory. Truth. This was the first lab. The origin of Project Seraph. This is where the bond was born. Simon walked deeper. The lights followed him. In the center of the room was a chair. Metal. Wires. A broken helmet hung from a cracked frame. Elias sat beside it. Alive. older than before, eyes dim but awake. He looked at Simon and smiled without joy. You came. Simon nodded. I had to. Elias stood slowly, his back stiff, his movement slow, but his voice clear. You bonded fully. I can feel it. It is inside you now. Simon said, You left this behind. You ran. Elias said, No, I chose to stop. I chose to live as myself, not as something else. Simon asked, What is it doing to me? Elias looked at Cairo, then back at Simon. It is giving you a new path, a shared mind, a shared life. Simon whispered, So I will not stay human. Elias nodded. Not completely. You will be something new. Not human. Not creature. Both. Simon stepped back. He looked at Cairo. He saw the pain, the loyalty, the hunger, the instinct. He said, I do not know if I can live like that. Elias said, Then you must choose. Simon asked, Choose what? Elias pointed to the chair. The machine was made to break the bond, to burn it out. It would hurt, but it would work. Simon said, And what happens to Cairo? Elias looked away. The bond cannot survive on one side. Simon stared at the chair, then at Cairo. The creature took a step forward, its head low, its claws open. A wave came, not of fear, not of anger, but acceptance. Cairo was ready to die if Simon asked it to. Simon felt his throat close. He said, Why did you choose me? Cairo showed him one last memory. A fire, a lab, a child behind glass, crying, alone, a test subject. Like Cairo, the memory shifted. Cairo saw Simon for the first time on Vexernine, not as prey, but as something the same. Broken, alone, survivor. Simon dropped to his knees. He whispered, I do not want to lose myself, but I do not want to lose you either. Elias said, Then you already know your choice. Simon stood. He walked past the chair, past the tanks, past the ghosts of the past. He placed his hand on Cairo's chest. He said, We finished this together. Cairo leaned in. Their foreheads touched. The storm outside grew louder. Lightning struck the ground above the cave. Machines in the walls began to glow. Simon's veins lit like stars. His voice echoed in the dark. I am not just me anymore. I am us. Elias turned away. He left the cave and vanished into the storm. Later, the cave collapsed. The tank shattered. The glass turned to sand. And only silence remained. Lyra waited at the crash site. Her leg healed. Her heart still uncertain. Then she saw them, walking through the storm. Simon, eyes bright like suns, skin calm like water. And beside him, Cairo, silent, still, but different. The bond was complete. Simon spoke. We are going home. Lyra asked, Is that still Earth? Simon smiled. Not anymore. In the sky above, the council watched from their ships. They had seen what they feared. Not a monster, not a man, but something new, something they could not control. A whisper passed through the stars. The bonded have returned, and nothing will ever be the same.